So, as I was saying, we'll do a small recap of what we've seen last session. Just a moment. So last session was an introduction to Microsoft Word. Now, this software helps us to write documents and memoirs, books, all the sort. Okay, so we can search for it in the Explorer menu just by typing the first letters, and the app appears. We can click on it like this to open it, or we simply click on enter on the keyboard, same thing, or we can just use the shortcut in the desktop. Double clicking the shortcut opens Word. Okay, this is the welcome screen. As I was saying, we have a section dedicated to the recently opened documents, like so. We can open a new document by clicking here on new, or selecting blank document, or any of the other templates. Okay, we can even load more templates to use. I prefer that we start with a blank document. We can even locate documents in our computer, in our storage, to open and work on. Okay, we can go like this to the recently opened documents, favorites, or folders. It gives you a sneak peek on the most accessed folders, or suggestions of the folders you may want to access. Or we can click on browse. This opens the Windows File Explorer window for us to locate whichever document we want to work on. Okay, so for example, here it opened documents, but we can navigate to the desktop, for example, and open any one of those like this. For example, this is a document. This is a test that I did last year, for example. Now, let's go back and open a blank document so we can redo what we've seen last session. As I've said, this is the Home tab. This is the default tab for Microsoft Word. Here you find multiple options. You can select or change the font size, or just by selecting the appropriate size from the drop-down menu, or by clicking on these icons here to increase or decrease the font size. Okay, now we can do all sorts of changes. For example, let's write a single word. For example, this word, we can select it, increase the size, decrease it. We can select the appropriate size, and notice as I'm scrolling up and down through this menu, it gives you a preview of what this word will look like in your document. Okay, so let's go with 20. Now we can make it bold, like so. We can make it italic, we can underline it, or all of the three. Okay, we can even strike through the text, make it a subscript, a superscript. For example, let's give you an example. For example, if you were writing, for example, let's deselect this and go back to regular text. Then let's write 2, for example, H, then subscript, then 2, then O. Okay, we have to deselect this and then click on O. Okay, this, for example, if you want to write mathematical equations, for example, like so, plus these are simple examples, okay? We can even change text positioning, like align it to the left, which is the default option, align it to the center, align it to the right, to write Arabic, for example. We've seen also how to work with lists, for example. Now we can do an unenumerated list, which is a bullet point, which is represented by bullet points, or we can do a numbered list, okay, like this, for example, A, B, C, D, for example. Now if we want to get out of the list, for example, we finished the list and now we want to write normal text, we just click again on this list to deselect the list element, and then we return to writing normally, okay? For example, if we want to change the alignment, we can do so. Is everything clear thus far? Can I continue with the presentation? Okay, so continuing, here we have list. For example, if we want to change this type of list to a to regular bullet points, we select every element in the list like so, and then we switch to a regular list, okay? We can switch between the two, or we can deselect everything, so each element will be represented in a line by itself, okay? So now let's see some other effects we can do on the text. For example, we have we can highlight the text like so, or we can even change the font color, the text color. This text now becomes red. We can go back to the regular color, and some other things, for example, if, for example, you have the language set to English and you make a mistake, a typo of some sort, for example, when you right click, notice it is underlined with red, meaning that we made a mistake. Now if you right click on the text, it gives you suggestions of what it thinks you mean, and you can choose one of them, or you can choose to leave the text as is if you didn't make a mistake and you purposefully written the word that way, okay? For example, here it corrected the word for me. Now we have so many different options. For example, let's go back to the font type. For example, the font type, we can choose between different fonts. Notice it gives you a preview of what the text will look like, so you can make the appropriate choice. For example, now if say for example I want to save this document. What I have to do is to go to the File tab and then we click on Save. Now we choose the appropriate folder where we want to save this text. For example, let's go to the Documents folder, and then we can write a name for this document. For example, let's call it test doc. Okay, excuse me, just a moment. Now, as I've said, when we want to save the document, notice here it has an extension, testdoc.docx. Okay, well, this is an extension. It is the extension, the default extension for a Word document. Now notice here it says save as type Word document star.docx. Now this saves the document as a Word document. Now if I were to exit Word and then, for example, go to my Documents folder, let's go to the Documents folder. Now we can find the document here. Oh, I seem to have forgotten what I've named it. For example, I've named it test.docx. Yes, this is the one. For example, oh, this is the appropriate one. For example, if I want to save it as another type, for example, let's say I want to save it as a PDF, I can do save or save as, because save only saves the changes I've made under the same name and the same type. For example, I've added a word. Let's go and save it. When you click on save, it doesn't change anything. It just adds the changes you made to the original document, okay? Now, if I want to save it as another type, as a PDF, for example, what I have to do is go to the Save As option and then go, for example, to the Documents or Documents folder or any folder for that matter, and then here under Save As Type, I can choose from a multitude of extensions or file types, okay? Now, let's say I want to save it as a PDF. I just select PDF. Notice here the extension now says .pdf. It doesn't say .docx, okay? Now, let's go and save it. And it is open as a PDF, okay? It is open as a PDF. Now this does not in any way, shape or form affect the Word document, okay? For example, if we go to the Documents folder, for example, let's go to the Documents folder now. Let's go to the Documents folder. Here we have testdoc.docx and testdoc.pdf. Now these are two separate files, okay? If I modify this file further, the changes won't be applied to the PDF unless I save it as a PDF, okay? So, for example, let's remove this word. Now let's for example, let's insert a shape, for example, like this. And if, for example, there are multiple ways to save, we can save using Ctrl+S. Now it saves the document. This is a shortcut to save a document. or we can also, for example, let's make changes. If we want to exit of the document, it prompts you to save the changes. Now, notice what it says in the prompt. Want to save your changes to test.docx? If you click don't save, recent copy of this file will be temporarily available. Okay, but it won't be permanently available. Now, if I save, even if I turn off the computer and then I turn on the computer again, I will find my document with the changes applied to it. Okay, now let's open the Word document again. Now notice the shape is here. Okay, now if I open the PDF file, no shape. Notice, because I didn't save the new document as a PDF file. Okay, is it clear? Is everything clear? Can we continue? If you have any questions, just this is the time to ask them. Yes, so the last part, if I save the document, now let's try again so you can understand. For example, notice here is my document, okay? If I click Control plus S, okay, Control plus S, or go to the File tab and click on Save. Now this document is called testdoc.docx, okay? .docx, this is an extension. This represents the Word document file type, okay? Now, if I go to the PDF file, for example, let's go back to the documents folder. Let's go to the testdoc.pdf. Now, notice we don't have a shape. It has the same content as the old Word file, okay? If I want to modify this PDF file, what I have to do is go back to the Word file, okay? And then go to the File tab and click on Save As, okay? Save As, and go to the same document. Now we choose PDF, okay? Let's save it. Now notice this prompt. You already have a file named testdoc.pdf. Do you want to replace it with this one? For example, this one contains changes that are not present in the original PDF file. Now if I click OK, it deletes the old PDF file and creates a new one with the same name, okay? Notice this PDF file now has the same content as the Word file, okay? Is everything clear? Okay, so continuing. Now we have another function that we haven't seen last time in the File tab, which is the print function. We can print a document by going to the File tab and then clicking on Print, okay? Now this is a single page document. If we had multiple pages, it will show multiple pages here, okay? Or we would have the option to, for example, print multiple pages of this document. Okay, now it chooses the printer, which is the default printer here. I have this printer installed. When you click print, it communicates with the printer and prints your pages. Okay, Now you can customize this. For example, if you have, for example, a 5-page document, you can print, for example, page 1 followed, for example, by page 3 and then page 5, for example. Or you go from 1 to, for example, 4. You don't print the last page, for example. Or you can print a specific page. For example, I want to print the last page, like so, and then you click on print. Now, this is the print function, and you can access it by clicking on the shortcut Control plus Control and P. Control P opens the print menu. Okay. As we were saying before, Control plus Z reverts the changes you made. Okay. For example, let's add some text to this page, to this shape. For example, notice here this is an excellent option for us to review what we did last time with shapes. Now, when you insert a shape, let's delete this shape and let's go to the Insert tab and go to Shapes. For example, let's select this shape. Now, notice when you select the shape, the corners of the shape and the middle of shape, you can resize the shape like so by clicking on these points and dragging across, and you can also grab the corners and resize the shape like so, or you can even rotate the shape as you like. Okay. Now, for example, if you want to reposition the shape, you click inside the shape and you reposition it where you see fit. Okay. You can even add some text to the shape, for example, by right clicking and then click on add text, for example, and writing whatever you want. Okay. For example, we can even combine two shapes by going to this menu. For example, let's bring this shape here, and what we have to do is to select both shapes by selecting one and then clicking on the Control tab, holding the Control key on the keyboard, and just when you have this small plus icon above your mouse cursor, you click on the mouse. Now both shapes are selected. Once both shapes are selected, you right click and then you go to the group option and you click group. Now you can interact with both shapes as a single shape. Okay, like so. We can move them, we can resize them like this. Okay. And for example, when we want to ungroup the shapes, we right click again and then go to the group option and click on ungroup. Okay. Now, once we did this, we can move or interact with each shape independently of the other. Okay. Now, as we've seen, we can even change the fill of the shape. For example, we have the options. If we right click, we can change the fill of the shape. We can change the outline of the shape, the color of the outline, like this. We can do with it as we like. Okay. Now we have a bunch of shortcuts here. We can select shapes from this window. Also, we have the option to interact with pictures. For example, let's move this one here. We have the option to insert pictures. we can choose pictures from this device, like so, for example. Same thing with shapes. We have the option to resize the picture. We have the option to, for example, let's move this here. We have the option to move the picture where we want it, okay? And the only option we don't have is we can't add text to a picture, okay? What we have to do is for example, let's go back like this and go to the Insert tab. Here, what you notice, we have many different options. We go to the text box option. Let's go to a simple text box, and if we want to add some text to a picture or just under a picture, for example, let's go to the Home tab. Let's change the positioning of the text. Now let's move the text box just under the picture, like this, okay? Now, this is concerning the pictures. Pictures don't have as many options as shapes. Now, what we do have is we can even choose pictures from online, okay? Online pictures. Now, what this does is it opens a Bing search menu, and then for example, can search online for pictures of any topic we want. For example, the topic we're writing about. For example, let's go with something like this. For example, you can select the text, the picture, and click on Insert. Okay. This is an online picture. As I was saying, we can resize the picture, we can rotate it, and we can change its shape like this. Okay. Now the another thing that's different between shapes and pictures between them, something that's different between them is that shapes, once you select the shape, notice I selected the shape, but the shape does not appear. It only appears if I drag across and draw it like this, okay? But with pictures, it's different. With pictures, you click on the insert and then you locate the picture. You can go to any folder on your home page, and then once you select the picture, you have to press enter on the keyboard or click on insert, okay? Notice if the picture is too big, now it jumped to a second page. This, for example, will be a great way to view the print screen. Now, here we have a document containing 2 pages, okay? Now, you can print the entire document, which is 2 pages, or you can select the first page just to print the first page, or print the second page, and we can, for example, print the current page. For example, if we are on the first page, it prints the first. If we are on the second, it prints the second, the third. Okay, this just to give you an example on shapes. Okay, now if we resize the shape, it will jump back up to the first page if there's enough space for it. Okay, is everything clear? Do you have any questions? Okay, so moving on now, for the insert tab, we can also go to page numbers. We can choose to insert page numbers, for example, on the bottom of the page, like this. Now every page in our document will be numbered. Okay, we can even, for example, if for example you still have space in your document, for example, let's remove this picture. We've removed it. Now if you still have space in your document, but for some reason you want to move to a new page, you insert a break, a page break. Okay, once you insert a page break, it takes you to a new page. Okay, we can even insert a blank page. Now we have 3 pages. Okay, now let's go to the layout tab. Let's go to the layout tab. Now this gives you greater control over your pages layout or your documents layout. Okay, you can choose to either make your page margins narrow, normal, moderate, or choose the appropriate size for your documents. Okay, this is normal. Once we make it narrow, notice everything jumped up and to the left because we've narrowed the margins. Okay, if we move back to normal margins, notice the text positioning changed. Okay, now we can even change the orientation of the page. Okay, like so, landscape orientation. We can go to for example, we can change the page size, letter, legal, A5, and the default size is the A4 paper. Okay, now if, for example, you were writing a research paper, a journal, you can choose what number of columns your document has. For example, the default is 1 column. We can choose 2 columns, for example. Notice it jumps down because the first column is over. Okay, let's just go back to the second column, like so. Evidently it will depend on the text size. Okay, now if we choose to make it smaller, we have to do many line breaks. This, for example, is what a two-column document would look like. Okay, now if you're wondering where did the rest of the text go, it is right here. Okay, if we want to bring it over here, you only have to insert some line breaks, and this is it. Okay, if for example we want to make this text, let's change the layout again to 3 columns. For example, we can write in the second column is everything clear? Now, why it looks weird? Because just because notice this 3-columned approach also applied to the above pages. Okay, so just for demonstration purposes, for example, research papers have multiple columns. For example, let's see an example of a research paper. This research paper, for example, has 2 columns. Okay, notice how well organized it is. Now this is due our example. In our example, it didn't look so good because we've filled it with empty spaces. Okay, I just wanted to demonstrate how the general shape or the presentation of a multi-column document would look like. Are you following along thus far? Is everything clear till now? Okay, so next time, inshallah, we will move on to how to organize a document into chapters, sections, and subsections, and how to make a table of content. Okay, so if everything is clear, then we will stop the session here, and we will continue next time, inshallah. So about Google Classroom, I've created a Google Classroom and I added all of you, I believe, to it, and I ask you if anyone wants to join, just send them the link to the Google Classroom. These courses will be available also in Moodle. You can go there and view the video courses, and they will be also available in YouTube. Okay. No problem. I will send you the code to the Google Classroom via email, okay?